Pablo Escobar may be one of the most recognizable Colombian men in history. As a rich drug lord from the 80s and early 90s, he is sometimes compared to the famous United States gang leader Al Capone. Although Pablo Escobar is a controversial figure, years after his death, he still sparks intrigue. Even now, his life is playing out in a popular Colombian soap opera. And in Medellin, the city where he lived, tours have popped up for those interested in getting a peek into his life. America's Now correspondent Michelle Begue took the tours and files this report.
Clips of a documentary on Pablo Escobar's life sets the mood as we travel to his old hideout in Medellin. We are on the Pablo Escobar tour, created by Roberto Escobar Gaviria, Pablo Escobar's brother and old accountant. At the entrance of the house, Pablo Escobar's old Harley-Davidson is on display. This, along with old cars, are some of Escobar's possessions that were not confiscated by the Colombian government. Roberto Escobar lives in this old house, and during the day he lets tourists take a peek into the life of his notorious brother.
He would come here for a day, for a week, and then move to the other house. All the furniture you see in the living room, and here were the same furniture when Pablo was living in this house.
Usually, Roberto Escobar asks for $20,000 US to film the tour. But on the day we went, he granted everyone permission to film for free. Highlights of the tour include an old desk where Pablo Escobar used to hide cash and one of 2 secret hideouts in the old house.
So it was used for hiding, even though they never had to use it because the government and the police never came to this house. But Pablo did use it for some occasions. So when people came to fix lights, doors, anything like this, and obviously he didn't want anybody to know that this was his house, he would hide inside this.
A wanted poster of Pablo and Roberto Escobar hangs on display in the living room. Today, Roberto Escobar is partly blind and deaf after a bomb went off in an envelope he received while in prison in 1993. At the end of the tour, Roberto Escobar signs souvenirs bought by the tourists. The tour itself is legal, but not highly publicized, as Colombians have voiced disdain for an attraction that brings back memories of a darker time in Medellin. During the height of his power in the 1980s, Pablo Escobar was responsible for as much as 80% of the cocaine transported into the United States. Authorities say no one truly knows the full extent of Escobar's wealth. But in 1989, he landed on Forbes' World's Billionaires list with an estimated personal net worth of $3 billion US. He was a drug lord that was both feared and loved. Escobar's way of dealing with everyone was through plata o plomo, literally meaning silver or lead. If he couldn't bribe a person, then he would have them killed. As Pablo Escobar grew in notoriety, so did Colombia. Internationally, Medellin, the city where he ruled and lived, became synonymous with Pablo Escobar. Today, the city is trying to grow out of the dark shadow. But can this be done when tours bring up the past?
Let's go back to last days of November of 1993. Pablo was moving around in one place to another, staying 2 or 3 nights in one place until he decided to move here.
Juan Manuel Uribe, tour guide for a different excursion called the Pablo Escobar's History Tour, goes through the last days of Escobar's life. This is the house where he died during a raid by special forces. Marcela Mariscal, managing director of Sea Colombia Travel, the agency that has the Pablo Escobar's History Tour, believes that if the tour is done respectfully, there is an important opportunity to tell Colombia's story through this infamous man.
No, the tour is definitely designed for foreign travelers, but we're working really hard with locals to show them that we can show this as history, as part of the past, bad past of Medellin, and show the new face of Medellin. If there is a museum of a Holocaust museum or a Al Capone museum, that's all in the past. Now there is a museum, there is a tour that shows the life and death of Pablo Escobar, and that's definitely a positive thing.
This tour visits places like Pablo Escobar's grave, where thousands of Colombians came to say goodbye to the drug lord, sometimes nicknamed Robin Hood for his occasionally charitable actions towards a poor section of Medellin. Another stop, an old penthouse where there was an attempt against his life.
But what happened on January of 1988, the Cali cartel trying to kill Pablo brought a car here with 150 pounds of dynamite. And they pull the car inside, the guys get up, kill the guy at the gate, and they run to the street with a remote control. They activate the bomb. The building didn't collapse, but it suffered a lot of damage.
The tourists on the Pablo Escobar's history tour are also reminded of Colombia's suffering during the violent past. The tour makes a stop at the San Antonio Park of Medellin, where in 1995 a terrorist group set off a bomb, killing innocent civilians. These are the remains of a steel bird sculpture damaged by the blast. Colombian artist Fernando Botero remade his work, named Bird of Peace, and placed it next to the old one in memory of the victims. See Colombia Travel says this and other stops through landmarks in Medellin is what differentiates the Pablo Escobar is History tour, as they try to make a point of separating themselves from Roberto Escobar's tour.
Okay, we basically don't want to profit from a bad history of Colombia. We don't want to profit from the pain of Colombia that has suffered. It's different because we don't show it as a novelty. It's immersed in the city. We mix it with a city tour. We don't sell it separately.
Patrick Bishara Bijani took the tour with his family from United Arab Emirates. And after seeing Medellin, he wants people to know that the Pablo Escobar is History tour is just that, history.
No, I felt very comfortable. I mean, it's a fact of life, right? There was this guy called Pablo Escobar, and he did what he did back. I mean, it's part of your political history, right? Quite to the contrary, they should bring Pablo Escobar and his past up to see how much the country's security has improved over the years, and how they were able to overcome those dark days of cartel warfare.
Our thanks to Michelle Begue for that report.